A date is set to begin hearing oral arguments in Grayscale Investment's appeal of the SEC's decision to deny the conversion of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF. Of course, a lot has happened since that issue was originally raised. There's now a new elephant in the room, which is that DCG is reportedly under investigation by the SEC. Grayscale is owned by Digital Currency Group, which also owns CoinDesk. Anyway, joining us to discuss all this is Grayscale Investment's Chief Legal Officer, Craig Salm. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
So, as I just said, there's been some new developments since this was originally raised, and one of them is that DCG is reportedly under investigation by the SEC. And how does that affect this situation? Because we have two very separate things going on, and does this reported investigation affect the outcome, or will it affect the outcome in your view?
So it's important to note that the question the court will ultimately have to answer in our case is a question of law. That question is, did the SEC act arbitrarily and capriciously and discriminate against Grayscale when it denied our effort to convert GBTC into a spot Bitcoin ETF, even though we now have several approved Bitcoin futures ETFs trading? Bitcoin futures are a derivative of Bitcoin itself, and that is the question they'll have to answer. And so events related to FTX or Alameda or Genesis Capital and so on are not relevant to that ultimate question. So I think it's really important for everyone to understand those are two very separate things.
They are separate things, but there is sort of like a sentiment element involved here, which is like, for whatever reason, the SEC and the US in general has not viewed the concept of an ETF very positively. That's been the case for a while. And now you could argue that sentiment has gotten even worse, right? I mean, because there is also just sort of this political element here. And I mean, do you think that there is really, given this current environment, given this reported investigation, given all the negative rhetoric in Congress, I mean, is there really any hope for an ETF in the near future? Is this really a realistic ambition?
I would say now more than ever is a reason why we should have spot Bitcoin ETFs approved in the US. Rather than having US investors and consumers go to less regulated offshore marketplaces and exchanges, wouldn't it be better for them to be trading in Bitcoin on a national securities exchange where you have the protections and guardrails and transparency that comes with that? That's on top of the fact that GBTC already exists. It has nearly 1 million investors. It represents $13 billion of assets across all 50 states in the US. It's trading tens of millions of dollars in daily trading volume. Who are we protecting by not allowing it to be even more of a protected vehicle for those investors and beyond?
So, Craig, one I've heard a lot has to do in many ways with the way in which the way in which the spot markets versus the futures markets price their Bitcoin, the way in which the CME specifically does it is one that the SEC, or let's just say the CFTC rather, found it easy to swallow, which is, of course, that it's a random number and it's hard to manipulate. That's not considered the same thing, or at least the same sentiment isn't felt by the SEC, given the role in certain actors in manipulating the price before. We're seeing the discount happen right now in the NAV for Grayscale. The market seems to say that they don't think that you guys are going to be successful. Something like 40%, 42% right now is as high as 48, 49%, almost half of the having what you guys have in assets. What's the market? You are saying the market is wrong, correct? Why is there this discount, so steep discount happening right now in the NAV?
Two important things that you raised there, Lawrence. One, the underlying spot Bitcoin markets are what determines pricing for both spot Bitcoin, of course, which is what GBTC holds, as well as Bitcoin futures, being a derivative of Bitcoin itself. And so those CME Bitcoin futures, which are inside of the approved Bitcoin futures ETFs, are deriving their pricing from those same underlying spot Bitcoin markets. And that's really the crux of our argument, in that you have two like investment vehicles, spot Bitcoin ETFs and Bitcoin futures ETFs, which derive their pricing from the same underlying markets, and therefore you should be treating them the same, which is to say they should both be approved for trading. So I think that's a really important.
Right.
Right. Yeah. You can go to the CME website and look at the index that they're using to derive the price of those futures. it's based on the same spot Bitcoin markets that GBTC uses through its XBX index. So I think this is a real concrete way to show their correlation with each other.
So why the discount?
Your question about the discount. So GBTC today is trading the way that any vehicle that has the structure of GBTC would trade, which is to say it can trade at both premiums and discounts. Right now it's trading at a steep discount, about 40%. Given the AUM of GBTC, if it's allowed to convert into an ETF, that $4+ billion of value would be able to be unlocked for all those investors. And that's why our number one focus is converting GBTC into a spot Bitcoin ETF.
You know, on that point, according to CoinGlass, Grayscale owns over 631,000 Bitcoin, which is worth over $14.5 billion. It also holds nearly $5 billion worth of Ether. So investors are worried Grayscale might need to sell much of its crypto holdings as a result of the Genesis bankruptcy and Gemini's dispute with DCG. Is this at all a possibility?
So I can't comment on CoinGlass's reporting, but that's a fundamental misunderstanding of how ownership of shares of the products actually work. Shares of GBTC, shares of ETHE are owned by the investors. So there's nothing that Grayscale could ever do to sell shares that do not belong to us. We do not own any of those shares. So I think this is a little fundamental.
So can you imagine a scenario under which Grayscale could be forced to sell its crypto holdings? I guess not.
No, so Grayscale does not own those shares. We sponsor GBTC, which means we're responsible for the management and producing SEC reports and getting the financials audited and all those things that we've been working on to convert into an ETF. But in terms of the ownership of shares, that belongs to the nearly 1 million investors across all 50 states.
So crypto asset manager Valkyrie Investment says they want to sponsor and manage GBTC. Are such offers being considered?
Grayscale has zero intentions of removing ourselves as sponsor. It's great to see that there's others out there offering up their advice on ways to manage GBTC. I think that's really a distraction of what we're trying to do here, which is convert GBTC into an ETF. That is the best way for GBTC to track the value of its underlying Bitcoin for the long term. And it's the best way for that $4 billion plus in value to be unlocked for investors. And that's why we are laser focused on that. Our litigation is moving quite swiftly. We just got the date for oral arguments, which is March 7th, which is a very welcome piece of news for us because it means we are moving forward on a very good timeline. Based on conversations with our lawyers, we are anticipating to have a final decision in the appellate court by this coming fall. So, given that we filed this last June, we're very happy with the timeline of this.
So CEO Michael Sonnenschein has stated that you're bringing Bitcoin in a smart way to the United States, that many of the other non-regulated crypto businesses failed. Where do you think others failed, and what will Grayscale do differently?
So Grayscale's model is to bring regulated products to U.S. investors. Our mission is for those who want, the familiarity of a transparent wrapper with reporting, audited financial statements, investable in your brokerage account. I acknowledge that's not every single person within the Bitcoin and crypto space, but for a lot of investors, that's the type of investment wrapper that they want, and that is our offering. So we are always going to be focused on making our products more regulated, more transparent, and more robust. Conversion to an ETF is one of the best ways to accomplish that.
If you could just clear up something, these kind of things that kind of float around. Did DCG take any loans from Genesis to in any way support Grayscale?
So DCG is a separate, distinct entity from Grayscale. I can't comment on the activities that they took. There have been public reportings from them based on recent filings, so I would just defer to those.
Are there any plans in the meantime to lower fees for investors of GBTC during this period? Yeah, we've been very transparent about the fact that upon conversion into an ETF for GBTC, we would absolutely lower the fee for that vehicle. So again, one of the reasons why we are laser focused on that initiative. Well, Craig, thank you so much for your time. Really great insights there. That was Grayscale Investment's Chief Legal Officer, Craig Salm.